So if you are listening to this right now while you're trying to write an email, or maybe you're casually scrolling through a social feed.
Or even just mentally mapping out your grocery list, right?
Okay, exactly, yeah. If you're doing any of that while I'm speaking, I actually need you to pause for a second.
Just for a second.
Because by doing those things simultaneously, you are currently operating with an IQ drop of 11 points.
Which is, frankly, a steeper, more immediate cognitive decline than if you had just stayed awake all night long.
I mean, it is a brutal reality check. And it's exactly why we are pulling from a massive stack of cognitive science and behavioral psychology today. We're doing a deep dive into the neuroscience of attention.
Because we really need to find out why our brains actively punish us for doing the exact thing that modern work demands of us.
Right. Like, why do we constantly feel so overwhelmingly busy, but we get absolutely nothing done? We want to uncover the specific biological shifts that can actually help you reclaim your focus.
And, you know, the overarching theme in all of these sources is that this biological limitation, it applies to absolutely everyone.
Yeah.
If you're in your 20s and you're dealing with this intense comparison culture, you might feel this crushing pressure to just constantly do more things at once just to keep up.
Oh, for sure. Or if you're in your 30s, you're juggling career growth, relationships, financial pressures. You feel stretched thin across like a dozen open mental tabs.
And maybe you're in your 40s or 50s and you feel like these scattered mental habits are just permanently fixed, like you can't change them.
But the neuroscience strongly refutes that, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The brain remains incredibly malleable. Attention is a highly trainable skill at literally any age, provided we actually understand the machinery we're working with.
Well, I really want to look at that machinery because we have this very specific, almost cultural image of what multitasking looks like in our heads.
Right, the split-screen TV idea.
Exactly. We tend to think of our brains like a split screen. You've got the spreadsheet running on the left side of your mental screen, the conference calls playing on the right, and you just assume you're watching both simultaneously.
Which feels completely logical, right? But reading through the clinical explanations in our sources, that split-screen idea is just totally false.
Completely false. The prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain handling all this, it doesn't work like a split screen at all, does it?
Not even slightly. I mean, the prefrontal cortex is your engine for focus, for working memory, complex decision-making. And it has a very strict biological bottleneck.
Meaning it just can't do two things at once.
Right. It physically cannot process two complex streams of information simultaneously. So the whole concept of multitasking is a complete myth. What you are actually doing is rapid task switching.
Wait, so if it's not a split-screen TV, it sounds more like a single-stage spotlight.
Ooh, yeah, I like that.
And I've just got this highly stressed-out stagehand who is frantically whipping that one single spotlight back and forth between two different actors in the dark.
That analogy hits the nail on the head. That's exactly it. And the penalty for moving that spotlight is incredibly steep.
How so?
Yeah.
Like, what actually happens?
Well, when you swing it from, say, a financial spreadsheet over to a Slack message from your boss, your brain doesn't just instantly see the new thing. It has to sever the neural connections to the math you were doing, dive into your memory centers, and literally reconstruct all the rules for social communication.
Oh, wow. So it's a complete teardown.
Yeah, it has to recall the context of your relationship with your boss, the tone of the conversation, the vocabulary you need to use. Every single time you switch, the brain has to completely tear down one cognitive environment and build another one from scratch.
That sounds absolutely exhausting. And I assume that's why the sources point out such a massive time penalty.
The time tax is huge.
I was actually stunned by this metric in the research. It suggests that every time you switch a tab on your browser just to quickly check something, you aren't just losing the 30 seconds it takes to read that new page.
Not at all.
The time it actually takes for your brain to fully rebuild the context, to get that spotlight completely focused back on your original task, it effectively costs you almost 30 minutes of lost focus.
30 minutes for one tab switch.
That's terrifying.
And the time cost is massive, sure. But if we connect this to the broader neurological picture, it's the loss of raw cognitive power that is truly damaging.
Because of the energy it takes to rebuild the context.
Exactly. The brain is burning huge amounts of glucose just to facilitate those rapid transitions. Which brings us right back to that 11-point IQ drop we mentioned at the very start of the deep dive.
Right. Okay. I want to know exactly what is happening in the brain to cause that. Because losing 11 IQ points just from, answering an email while writing a report, it sounds almost hyperbolic.
I know it sounds exaggerated, but the data is solid. It comes from a major study connected to the University of London. They found that forcing your brain into this rapid switching state just completely overloads your cognitive capacity.
Like a computer crashing.
Exactly like that. It's like running way too many heavy programs on a laptop until the fan is screaming and the mouse just freezes up.
Yeah, we've all been there with the freezing mouse.
Right. So your ability to process new information, solve problems, think critically, it just plummets to the level of someone who has missed a full night of sleep.
Wow.
And it gets crazier. The researchers even noted that in some extreme cases, the cognitive impact on your performance is comparable to the impairment of smoking marijuana.
Wait, really? So just flipping between tabs makes me function like I'm stoned?
In terms of sheer cognitive impairment, yeah, in extreme cases.
That is wild. And the really terrifying part is that just closing the tab doesn't instantly fix it.
Right.
Even after you stop switching tasks, you aren't immediately back to normal.
No, you're not.
The American Psychological Association has a term for this that I found completely haunting. They call it attention residue.
Attention residue, yeah. It happens because the brain cannot seamlessly drop an uncompleted task.
So it just kind of lingers.
Exactly. Let's say you read a stressful email about a looming deadline, and then you force yourself to immediately switch over to writing a creative brief. A significant chunk of your neural processing power stays stuck on that previous email.
Like a background app draining your battery.
Yes. Your brain leaves a background process running, ruminating on the stress, trying to close the loop. So you are attempting to do this deep creative work with only a fraction of your actual cognitive capacity.
Okay, I have to ask the question that I know I struggle with personally. What if I'm just single tasking?
Okay, lay it on me.
I have one tab open. My phone is put away in a drawer. I'm actively working on my project.
Okay.
But I'm keeping a running mental list of unfinished chores in the background. Like I need to pick up the dry cleaning. I need to call my mom. I need to remember to take the chicken out of the freezer for dinner.
Right, the chicken.
Always the chicken. But I haven't switched physical tasks. I'm just staring at my one tab. Is that still hurting my focus?
According to attention researchers, that invisible mental list keeping is treated by the brain as one of the most severe forms of multitasking.
Seriously? Worse than the visible kind. How is that possible if I'm not actually physically interacting with anything else?
Because you are forcing your working memory to constantly juggle those open loops while simultaneously trying to execute a complex task.
Oh, so the spotlight is jumping inside my head.
Exactly. Working memory is highly limited. So by holding on to the dry cleaning and the chicken, you are occupying the very mental slots needed to hold the complex ideas for your project. It's a massive, invisible drain.
That makes so much sense, but it's so frustrating.
And cognitive researchers at Carnegie Mellon actually took this a step further. They found that even just the mere anticipation of an interruption, like just knowing that an important email might arrive at any moment, is enough to measurably reduce your cognitive performance.
Before the notification even happens.
Before it even happens, just the anticipation drains you.
If the biological cost is this high, right? If it drops our IQ, drains our glucose, creates all this attention residue, why do we tell ourselves so many stories to justify it?
Because we all do it.
We all do it. So I want to look at some of the common myths we use to basically make ourselves feel better about this behavior.
Oh, the human brain is excellent at rationalizing its own bad habits. I think the digital native myth is usually the first one people bring up.
Yes. There is this incredibly pervasive cultural idea that younger people, people who grew up with smartphones in their hands and 5 screens in their bedrooms, that they're somehow immune to this.
Like they've just evolved to handle it.
Exactly. The assumption is that their brains adapted to handle it seamlessly.
Well, the biological reality completely dismantles that assumption. The structural limitations of the prefrontal cortex apply uniformly across all age groups.
So Gen Z isn't off the hook.
Nobody is off the hook. It genuinely does not matter how much screen time you were exposed to as a toddler. Human neural architecture simply cannot process 2 complex, attention-demanding streams of information simultaneously. Evolution just does not happen in a single generation just because we invented the iPad.
Fair point. What about the Stanford University study on heavy multitaskers? Because there's also the supertasker myth.
Oh, right. The resume supertaskers?
Yes. The people who proudly put multitasking on their resumes and say, sure, most people can't do it, but I'm a supertasker. I thrive on doing 5 things at once.
So the Stanford researchers specifically targeted those people. They brought in individuals who self-identified as heavy multitaskers, people who genuinely believed they were masters of their chaotic environments.
And what happened?
They ran them through a series of cognitive tests focusing on attention control and working memory. And the results were staggering. The heavy multitaskers performed significantly worse on every single metric than the light multitaskers.
Wait, so they weren't just failing to be better, they were actively worse at the very thing they thought they were best at.
Yes. The researchers concluded that heavy multitaskers essentially train their brains to be highly distractible.
Oh, that makes sense.
Over time, their cognitive filters just break down. They lose the ability to filter out irrelevant information, meaning every tiny stimulus in their environment derails their spotlight.
Okay, here's a myth that hurt me personally when I read through the sources, the background noise myth. I love putting on a podcast or, music with lyrics while I'm trying to power through work. It makes the time go faster. But I'm guessing that counts as a switching cost.
Well, it depends heavily on the nature of the work, but for deep analytical or verbal thinking, auditory input drastically increases your switching cost.
Because I'm listening to words while trying to write words.
Exactly. Your brain uses the same neural pathways to process the lyrics of a song or the conversation in a podcast as it does to generate analytical thought or write an email.
So they're fighting.
Right. Those two streams are fighting a tug of war over the exact same cognitive resources.
Okay, let me try to find a loophole in the biology here.
Good luck.
What if I am folding a massive pile of laundry while talking to a friend on the phone? Am I still getting punished with attention residue and IQ drops?
Okay, you found it. That scenario is the one safe exception in the research. Attention scientists call it the automatic versus attention rule.
Automatic versus attention.
Okay. So, folding laundry is an automatic task. It relies on motor memory and the basal ganglia, requiring almost zero engagement from the prefrontal cortex.
I don't even have to think about it.
Right. A phone call, however, is an attention task. Because they aren't competing for the same neural real estate, you can pair them safely.
Oh, thank goodness.
But the hard line is that the moment you try to pair two attention tasks like creative writing and listening to a team meeting, the biological bottleneck kicks in and your work will suffer.
Okay, I hear all this biology, the bottlenecks, the glucose drains. But honestly, a part of me is still sitting here thinking, okay, but if I just focus harder, I can beat the system. I just need more discipline.
Oh, so many people think that.
We constantly treat our inability to multitask as a character flaw, right?
We do, but you are falling straight into what behavioral psychologists call the willpower trap. We have culturally moralized productivity, but struggling with multitasking is absolutely not a lack of discipline. It is a structural feature of the human brain.
It's just how we're built.
Exactly. You can no more discipline your way out of the cognitive switching tax than you can discipline your way out of needing oxygen to breathe. Biology always wins.
So if willpower is completely useless here, and this behavior drops our overall output by up to 40%, which is a massive hit to productivity, why on earth do we keep doing it?
That's the real question.
The sources mentioned that the average professional checks their phone over 90 times a day and checks their inbox once every 6 minutes. If it hurts us so much, why do we feel this intense, almost physical compulsion to keep our email open?
To understand that compulsion, we really have to look past productivity and look at the deeper psychological loops driving the behavior.
Okay.
Task switching is very rarely about actually getting things done. It's usually a symptom of something else. Take procrastination and perfectionism.
Right, okay. If I have a really daunting task sitting in front of me, a blank page that I am terrified won't be perfect, I can just open 6 other tabs, answer 3 low-priority emails, and reorganize my digital desktop.
And in doing so, you create this powerful illusion of productivity. Your brain registers all that frantic motion as work.
I feel super busy.
You feel incredibly busy, which temporarily soothes the anxiety of the blank page while allowing you to actively avoid the one real task you actually need to do.
Wow. The sources also dig heavily into dopamine dysregulation. Now, we hear about dopamine all the time regarding social media, but how does it drive workplace multitasking?
Well, evolutionarily, our brains are wired to seek out novel information, right? It kept us alive to notice new things in our environment.
The rustle in the bushes.
Exactly. But today, every time you check a notification, refresh an inbox, or switch to a new tab, your brain receives a tiny hit of dopamine. It's a neurochemical reward for finding something new.
Even if it's just a spam email.
Even then, Over years of doing this, your brain becomes conditioned to expect a steady drip of those tiny rewards.
Which means when you finally try to do the right thing, when you sit down to do sustained, single-focused work for an hour, the novelty stops.
The dopamine drip completely dries up, and your brain essentially goes into minor withdrawal.
Really? Withdrawal.
Yeah, that withdrawal makes sitting still and focusing feel almost physically uncomfortable.
I actually noticed that specifically in the case studies.
Mm.
People weren't just describing being tired, they described physical sensations. Like a tight, racing feeling in their chest.
Yeah.
Or this intense, jittery restlessness when they tried to just do one single thing. We are literally using constant busyness as a fake stand-in for progress, just to self-medicate that restlessness.
And society heavily rewards that busyness.
Yeah.
If your day is full of motion, if you're instantly replying to messages and constantly jumping into threads, people assume you're getting a massive amount of work done.
But biological motion is not progress.
Spot on.
So how do we stop fighting our own biology? Let's pivot from the diagnosis to the cure.
Good idea.
If willpower doesn't work, and our brains are hooked on the dopamine of the switch, what does this actually mean for you, the listener, trying to get through your workday with your sanity intact?
The fundamental shift the research demands is prioritizing environment over effort. You have to stop relying on internal willpower and start building external structures.
Because willpower fails.
Every time. The goal is not to eliminate every single interruption in your life because, we live in the real world and that's just impossible. The goal is to build small, physical barriers that protect your single-focused time.
Okay, well, the sources gave some incredibly practical strategies for designing this environment. And I really want you to think about your own workday as we walk through these. The first one is the single-tab rule and the physical placement of your phone.
This one is huge.
The research showed that just having your phone visible on your desk, even if it is face down and completely on silent, actively reduces your cognitive capacity.
The reason behind that is fascinating. Even if you aren't touching the phone, your brain recognizes it as an infinite portal of novelty.
It knows what it is.
Exactly. Your subconscious has to spend background energy constantly monitoring its presence and actively suppressing the urge to grab it.
So it's draining my battery just by sitting there.
It is draining your working memory just by being in your peripheral vision. Moving the phone to another room, or even just putting it inside a closed drawer, removes that visual trigger and gives you an instant, measurable boost in focus.
That is such a simple fix. Then there is the concept of batching and the 25-minute window. There was a highly relatable case study in the materials about a marketing coordinator named Sarah.
Oh, Sarah's story was great.
She prided herself on being hyper-responsive, right? Answering emails during Zoom meetings, texting while writing client reports. But she was exhausted, constantly working late, and always felt behind.
Sarah is the textbook example of the switching tasks destroying productivity. When researchers actually had her track her work patterns, she realized she had rewritten the exact same paragraph of a client proposal 4 separate times.
4 times?
Yeah, because every time someone walked up to her desk or pinged her, her spotlight swung away. When she came back to the proposal, the context was gone, and she had to start the thought over from scratch.
So to fix it, she didn't try to summon more willpower. She changed her environment.
Exactly.
She started batching her messages, meaning she only allowed herself to check email and Slack at 3 specific set times during the day.
And for the rest of the time, she worked in protected 25-minute focus blocks with notifications totally turned off.
And the result? She cut her total project time in half.
Half.
But the coolest part to me was that her writing quality actually improved because her complex ideas were no longer being constantly fragmented by interruptions.
That kind of structure just works in harmony with the brain's natural rhythms instead of fighting them. Another powerful yet incredibly simple structure is transition breathing.
Transition breathing.
Yeah, when you do have to switch tasks, just taking 3 slow, deliberate breaths before you begin the new task gives your prefrontal cortex a physiological moment to fully release the previous context.
Like a mental palate cleanser.
Exactly, which significantly reduces the attention residue we talked about earlier.
I love that. And for closing those nagging mental loops, the invisible multitasking with the dry cleaning and the chicken, the sources highlighted the end of task close.
Oh, Jennifer, the grad student.
Yes. They followed Jennifer, who was chronically stressed because her brain literally wouldn't turn off. So she started a new habit. Before she switched from researching to cooking dinner, she would write down exactly 1 sentence about where she left off and what her very next step would be.
It basically told her brain, we are done here. The information is safely stored. You can stop running the background process.
By externalizing the information, she created a completed loop. The brain no longer felt the need to juggle it in working memory.
Which completely stopped that mental tug of unfinished business.
Now, out of all the environmental hacks, I have to share my absolute favorite strategy from this deep dive.
Which one?
It's so simple, but it completely sidesteps the biological penalty of switching tabs. It is the physical notepad hack.
Oh, I use this one every day.
It's the best. You just keep a physical paper pad right next to your keyboard. When you are in the middle of deep work and a stray thought violently pops into your head like, oh, I need to buy dog food, instead of opening a new browser tab to go to Amazon, you just write dog food on the pad and keep working.
And the reason that works so well is deeply tied to how we process visual information. When you open a new browser tab to buy that dog food, you are immediately hit with a wall of algorithms, bright colors, advertisements, and other products.
The dopamine trap.
Right. It completely derails the prefrontal cortex and triggers that dopamine-seeking loop. By writing it on paper, you engage a totally different motor pathway.
You capture the idea, safely offloading it from your working memory, but you do it without exposing your brain to the hyper-stimulating visual landscape of the internet.
You close the loop without paying the 30-minute switching tax.
It is brilliant. You aren't trying to force yourself not to think about the dog food. You're just changing the physical environment of how you record it.
Yep.
So as we start to wrap up this deep dive, I want to ask you for the ultimate awareness tool. If the listener can only take one immediate step after they finish listening today, what is the most powerful thing they can do to start fighting back against this biology?
The single most effective starting point is the weekly attention review.
How does that work?
Once a week, ideally on a Friday afternoon, you sit down for exactly 5 minutes. You honestly assess your week and ask yourself, where did task switching cost me the most time and energy?
Okay, so getting specific.
Right. Was it a team meeting where you were half answering emails and missed crucial instructions? Or maybe it was a specific project that dragged out for 3 days just because you kept checking Slack every 5 minutes?
You were just making the invisible costs visible to yourself.
Precisely. You aren't even trying to fix it immediately. But the data shows that people who do this 5-minute review naturally begin to reduce their switching behavior within just a few weeks.
Just because they are aware of it.
Simply because they can finally see the pattern of the damage. This single 5-minute reflection can often help people reclaim a full hour of real deep focus a day.
Getting an hour a day back just from a 5-minute review is an unbelievable return on investment.
Well, knowledge is only powerful when we apply it to our daily friction points, and that review is a very simple, low-effort application.
I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day. Our modern society generally views idle time as wasted time.
Oh, absolutely.
The prevailing narrative is that if you aren't actively doing something, consuming something, or producing something, you are falling behind. But based on the biological reality we've explored in this deep dive, true rest, like taking a 10-minute buffer between meetings with 0 screens, or going for a walk without your phone, or even a podcast playing, is not wasting today's time.
It really isn't.
It is an active, necessary biological process. It is the exact moment your brain is doing the heavy lifting of consolidating information, clearing out attention residue, and strengthening your capacity for tomorrow's focus.
It's an investment in tomorrow.
Exactly. So here's my challenge to you. Find just one 10-minute window today to do absolutely nothing. No phone, no music, no multitasking. Just let the cognitive spotlight cool down and pay close attention to how your brain responds.